Tim asked if there's a list of other apps to investigate other than these this week, and that's a really good question. I was actually thinking about that today, and I was going to type in a couple, but I'll send it out in the email I do with the recordings as well. But a couple other apps and programs that might be useful, I'll send those. But let's see, it is 12 now, and I'm sure people will keep trickling in. But today, thank you for joining us again. We have Joey Holbert from WSU. You're technically extension, right, Joey?
Sorta.
Yeah.
I'm, I'm in
I'll
the
let you
department.
introduce yourself. How about that?
Um, yeah. Well, thanks for this opportunity. I'm really grateful to be here. As Patrick said, um, I'm at WSU. I'm based in the Research and Extension Center in Puyallup, and I'm a postdoctoral research fellow in the Department of Plant Pathology. But part of our funding and grant and everything is to provide extension services and things like that. So you can definitely reach out to me if I could be a resource or provide any information for you all. Think it's fine to get going then, Patrick?
Yeah, I think so. So just so everybody knows, today we're going to be talking about iNaturalist and using it to track forest health issues. And Joey's got some really interesting projects to share. So I'll turn my video off. Joey, I'm going to leave it up to you whether or not you want to answer questions on the fly or wait until the end. It's totally up to you.
Maybe there are a bunch of sections, and so maybe we can take a brief question in between sections. But I did kind of pack this full of things, so let's see
Okay.
how we go.
Sounds good.
Sounds good to me as well. But yeah, feel free to raise your hand or ask a question, and I'll try and keep my eye on the chat as we go, or the Q&A. Cool. So as Patrick mentioned, we're going to talk about iNaturalist, and there's a lot of different ways you might use iNaturalist. So it's, and I hope that I demonstrate that and go over some of those cool things that are useful for it. I think that it's useful in a lot of different settings, but it also in terms of contributing to research that WSU is leading, where we use iNaturalist to as a tool to facilitate research. And I'll explain that a little bit. Before I begin, I want to acknowledge that we are coming to you from the traditional homelands of the Puyallup tribe of Indians, and we're really privileged to get to work and learn and study on this really beautiful and sacred land. And I encourage you to check out this tool, which is another tech tool that you might be interested in, called nativeland.ca, where it shows you the traditional territories that you may be occupying or living on. And as I mentioned, I'm at the Research and Extension Center in Puyallup. We're just a little bit east of Tacoma. And there I'm funded as a fellow by the USDA, and we have funding until June 2022. And as I mentioned, we have a grant that's research, extension, and education. So all those things, happy to participate and provide service if I can provide any information. Our background is really forest health, and I'll talk about that now. So I'm in the Research and Extension Center. I'm part of this group called the Ornamental Plant Pathology Program, and that just means we study plant diseases. And although we say we're ornamental, we actually focus on a lot of native species, and we're particularly interested in helping nurseries and plant producers produce clean stock and prevent spreading diseases like sudden oak death around the landscapes. But I also work with a gentleman who's an expert in Christmas tree diseases, and this really lends him well to all conifers or all Abies species at least. So if you have Abies health issues, our group is the one to contact, and we're there to provide service and help. We also have some cool research on madrones, and I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but there's the community group called the Arbutus Army. It's ARME for the shorthand for Arbutus menziesii. And that community group is really kind of all things focused on madrone, and one of my mentors is a co-lead of that. So just wanted to highlight a tiny bit of what we do and introduce myself. But now I'm going to jump into this software, this program called iNaturalist. So really, I refer to it as a platform, because you can use it on your computer, in your browsers, or you can download the smartphone applications and the mobile apps. You could use it on your tablet or your phone. You can download it, and it's kind of the most useful when you have an internet connection, but you can definitely use it offline. Um, and so iNaturalist is kind of built around this premise of everyone just sharing observations of nature, or organisms, biotic organisms, and the community really helps you identify what that is. So it's a tool to help you identify what you're looking at, but it's also a tool to kind of track and monitor where things are. So to date, they've had 64 million different observations of organisms shared by almost 4 million people. And this accounts for 330,000 species. So there's an immense amount of biodiversity that's been captured with this tool and shared. And there's a lot of people using it, which is one of the reasons that we like it as a tool. So basically how it works is you can take a photo. You can take a photo with your camera and add it on your computer later, or you can have, if you have the mobile app, you can take a picture from your phone or your tablet. And basically you share that observation. You don't even need to know what it is. It could just be an insect. It could be something you think is an invasive pest, and you just want to make sure it's not something that's going to harm your trees. Or maybe you're just curious on what flower is blooming at this location on your property. But you take a photo on there, you share it, whether you've been able to identify it or not yourself, and the community will help you identify it based on the pictures you share. In some cases, there might be maybe two people will agree that it's this one thing, and somebody might disagree. And it's kind of built on this, like the more people that are agreeing, the better the identification will be and the better use it will be. And then there's a lot of opportunity, like once you've shared something, it can get filtered into another project, or someone else might use it for research, or someone else might even contact you. So there's some really neat stories, like in the Olympics, where somebody's taking a picture of a salamander, and then Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife contacts them, like, oh my gosh, did you really see this in this place? We thought this was extinct, or we thought this is, we haven't been able to find very many observations of this salamander, and we want to go and, see where you saw it and things like that. So it is monitored by state agencies in a way where there's more people out there looking and sharing things. So there's a lot of neat stuff that gets observed that you wouldn't necessarily see on your own. And that was essentially the whole premise of iNaturalist, was to get the community help to help you identify things. But since then, they really recognized, like, wow, we can use this to train a computer to help us make those identifications. So now they have kind of AI, artificial intelligence, that's constantly learning from photos and what people are identifying those photos are. And with that, they've developed a separate kind of sister app called Seek. And so you can use Seek, and you can go out and you essentially just hold a leaf in your hand and you show Seek, and it will try and tell you what that species is. So it's like a real-time computer telling you what it thinks it is based on a picture. And it's not super, it's pretty good, but it's not perfect by any means. So use it with discretion. But it is a cool tool that's out there if you just want to wander around and identify things. It's really helpful. So there's some really good guides for getting started with iNaturalist, and I'm not going to try and we'll go through a little bit, but if you really want to know the nuts and bolts, I recommend checking out these getting started pages. So they have, for example, step-by-step process for adding an observation on your iPhone or your Android. And this is just the iPhone examples. And I'm going to kind of go through that on a little bit of just from some photos that I took this morning. So the reason we really like iNaturalist is, one, it's completely open, And so if you share observation on there, then somebody who's doing research on that tree at a later point will be able to use that information. And also, there's just a ton of folks already using it, and it already exists as a smartphone application that will be constantly updated. And every time your phone updates, there will be a new release of the, so it's a neat tool that's already out there. You know, maybe some people are like, I want to create my own app and I want to create an app that does this, but there's already apps like iNaturalist out there that are being used and updated and everything. And I'm going to show you a little bit on like how you can customize it or make a custom project to use it for yourself. But with this, you know, we've also, the one reason we like it is it's really easy to create new projects. And so now we have several projects on there, and there's going to be more and more coming over time. And so it's a good platform to get plugged into now, because we don't quite know where it'll go in the future and how we can use it. So I'm going to demonstrate, we have several projects about tree health on iNaturalist, and I'll go into those in a few minutes. But before we do, I just want to talk about, sorry, that wasn't supposed to be a link. Before we do, I'm just going to talk about how we can add some observations. So this is just a quick overview. I think actually, if we have time, I'll come back to this. There's a video, it's like a 1-minute video, and it explains it a little bit better than I could do it in a minute probably. But again, this is another place that is a really good resource to you all if you're interested in using it. There's a bunch of video tutorials on how to use iNaturalist.
I'll post that link in the chat box, Joey,
Okay.
if you want.
I don't know what just happened. Okay. Yeah, that'd be great. So, okay, this is from my phone this morning. I have an iPhone, but essentially what I want to do real quick is just show you the process from a phone. And then I have a couple pictures of what it looks like on your computer. But generally, when you open the app, the first thing you see, this is a list of like all the things that I've shared recently. If you're just starting, you won't have anything on here. But generally what you have to create an account on iNaturalist, and then you download the app. And then when you open it, you click on observe. And in this case, I just hit camera roll, because that means I want to log a photo from my camera already, a picture that I've already taken. But if you want to just open the app and take a picture, then you hit this camera button. But you can also add observations of sounds, like if you're interested in a bird call on your property and you want to know what bird it is, you could record a sound, or you can just add something without a photo and just say, I saw this here. But it's so, in this case, I said from my camera gallery, what did I say? From my camera roll, then it takes you to your camera and you can pick some photos. So here I'm looking at some drone photos that I took recently. And so I basically check which photos I want to add. And then when you add them on there, it asks you, okay, what did you see? And this is where you can leave it blank if you don't know what it is, and the community will help you. Otherwise, you can start typing. You can start typing what it is. So here I click search, and it actually, based on this picture of a branch, it's suggesting that it's a Persian walnut or an avocado. So you can see that the computer is not very accurate, especially when you just have like a photo of a branch. So in that case, I had to start typing madrone. Then I can select Pacific madrone because I know it's Pacific madrone. The next thing I wanted to mention is that I've given the app permission to use my location. So, and I've also given my camera permission to keep locations with the photos. So, so just by adding photos in this case, it knew that I was near Union, Washington. So it thinks it's like, okay, these photos are taken at this latitude and this longitude, and that's the easiest way. But I respect if you're not comfortable with giving your camera permission to keep track of your locations. But the thing I wanted to highlight here is like, even though iNaturalist knows where I took those pictures, you can indicate whether you want to obscure that location or if you just want that location to be private. So you don't have to, even though, because the data is open, it's like out there, people will be able to see the pictures you share, but you can choose whether you want them to be able to see the location or not. So from your computer, it looks a little bit different. And this is just a picture from my internet browser where I'm logged in. This is like the home screen is telling me, it's kind of like a feed of the people that I follow. But here you just click add observation. Then it just takes you to a screen where you drag and drop whatever photos you want. You could drop 100 photos in there in one time, I think. And then you can identify them individually. So in this case, I just had a photo of a hemlock branch. And so I just added a quick photos. Again, you're gonna type what it is if you know. In this case, it didn't know my location. So if you click this, then it opens a map where you drop a pin. And I see that I'm okay. The chat is just you sharing some.
Oh yeah, no questions
Okay.
yet. I was just
Cool.
sharing some stuff.
Yeah, I got way behind. But I guess at this time it is a good, I feel like we're making good time. Maybe not. Is there a quick question before I move on to, we can come back to this too. If the adding observations is a sticky point, it is kind of, there's a lot of good resources, but it is kind of difficult. It's not super inherent, but once you've got it down, then it's like really quick and it's really easy to use. It's just that first couple times, it could be kind of clunky. But I'm not seeing any questions come up, so I'm gonna just move forward. Another use of iNaturalist, other than just getting help identifying what you're looking at, in this case, you can also explore what's around you. So this is just an example of, again, from my browser, my internet browser, and you could do this right now as we go along if you like. But in this case, I'm not even logged in. You don't have to have a login. You can just go and explore. And I said this data is open, so like anyone can use it and explore it. So I'm going to click explore, and it just shows you, wow, there are 65 million observations of, again, 330,000 species. I'm not sure why these numbers are completely different than the first numbers, like in terms of observers, but anyway, so I clicked explore. This is like everything that's out there. It's all over the world. But let's say we just want to look for red cedar. And so in this case, I type Thuja plicata and it pulls up red cedar, and I click on red cedar and it shows me, wow, there's been 10,000 observations of red cedar. So that's pretty incredible. And if you click on map, so it'll show you. So I'm not sure how it picks these, but these ones are from 24 days ago, but I know there was some uploaded this morning. But so if you click on map, it shows you, wow, okay, people are seeing Western red cedar all over the world. Who knew there was that much Western red cedar in Europe? What is going on? Anyway, in this case, maybe I'm not interested in what's going on in the whole world. I just want to know what's in Washington State. So you type in Washington State. So then very quickly, we're getting down to, okay, there's 3,000 observations of red cedar in Washington State. Cool. That's pretty neat. Now we can look at something like, okay, let's zoom into Vancouver, Washington. Okay, now you can start to see where are all the red cedar in the city of Vancouver. Pretty neat. So that's just an example of how you can explore the data on your computer. But another way to explore data is to create projects. And so iNaturalist has this thing called collection projects. And so in this case, Patrick and I were approached by someone from the Forest Service who says, wow, it would be neat to start keeping track of where Oregon ash is, just so we know the areas that might be impacted if emerald ash borer arrives. And so what we did is we created a project on iNaturalist called Distribution of Oregon Ash. And you essentially, you just define the parameters like we just did and said, I'm interested in this single species, and I'm interested in Western United States and Canada. Then it collects all of those observations for you into a project, and it shows you. So now you could go zoom into this and you could see, wow, has there been any Oregon ash found near me? You know, in some cases we can say, hey, to everyone in Vancouver, Washington, can you go and look at these trees to make sure that emerald ash borer has not arrived yet? So it becomes a neat tool to know where to look for invasive species and things like that. So that's just all I'm going to say about exploring. I'm happy to come back to that. I'm gonna move on. Also recognizing that we're almost out of time. So there's another type of project on here called traditional projects. And in this case, these are the projects that I referred to in the Forest Health Watch program. And so we have projects called Red Alder Health Watch, Big Leaf Maple Health Watch, Western Hemlock Health Watch. But then we also have this pilot project called Western Red Cedar Dieback Map. And so from your computer, you would just browse here and you would click join this project. From your phone, you click on these little dots, and then you're going to click on projects, and then you're going to search. And in this case, I searched for Western Red, and then I click on Western Red Cedar Dieback Map, and then I hit join. And so by joining this project, I'll explain why you would want to join a project. By joining it, it allows you to share observations to that project. So I've mentioned the Forest Health Watch. It's a program that we've established at Washington State to really provide a platform for sharing observations about dying or healthy or dying trees. And so the pilot project has been focused on Western red cedar. There's more than 600 observations have been shared, but I did just mention we have these other projects that we just launched recently as well. The reason we selected Western red cedar as the pilot project is because there's been pretty extensive reports of dieback throughout the region, and we're seeing dying trees, and we want to know where. And so here's just for example, there's a lot of news articles about the dying Western red cedar, particularly in British Columbia, where they're really concerned about it. This is also demonstrated in the aerial survey data, which I think has been kind of shown you is another cool tool that you can explore, where the state flies aerial surveys over the state and the feds fly these surveys over the forests every year to mark where they're seeing insect outbreaks and things like that. And sorry, I'm rushing because I know I've been going a little slow, I guess. But the reason that we really are concerned about Western red cedar is because we know it's urgent. There's a lot of trees dying, and people are already indicating they don't want to plant red cedar, and that's a concern. So we need to understand what's going on, and then need to try and find solutions. And one way to do that is through community science and working together to create a shared understanding of what's going on. So with our partners in the Forest Service and the state agencies, we developed a project on iNaturalist to get the public and folks involved in reporting where they're seeing healthy and unhealthy trees. So the way this works is you create an account on iNaturalist, you can join the project. Once you join the project, when you're adding an observation of red cedar, you click on this projects tab, then you're going to tag the Western Red Cedar Dieback Map project. And when you do that, it's going to ask a bunch of extra questions. And these questions are what's important. So it asks you, what symptoms did you see? How much of the tree was affected? How many other trees are unhealthy? And did you see any other signs or symptoms that might explain why trees are dying? So this is very old. We're now at 600 plus observations, but But I should illustrate that there's information about how to contribute to this project, again, on this webpage, foresthealth.org/map. So just to go through, these are some observations of trees with dead tops in Portland, kind of Washington. These are King County. These ones are in Olympia. So I'm really just trying to illustrate more Olympia, Vancouver Island, Canada, Vancouver City, Canada. Just really illustrating that this information, these community scientists and this project is really revealing that like the dieback is widespread. It's happening throughout the whole range, at least on the west side of the Cascades. And so the questions that the project asks you is like, what symptoms did you see? Is the canopy thinning? Is the whole tree dead, or is it just the top dying back? I asked you, is it next to a road, or in the field or out in the forest? It asks you, what other factors did you see? Did you see a fungus or wood borers or bark beetles? This is our malaria. These are Schweinitzii, insect frass, insect holes, bark beetle galleries. These are things to look for and report. And it's helping us get an understanding of what's going on with the Western red cedar. Some also interesting observations have emerged from the community science data where people are seeing this fungus on red cedar, and it's something we don't know a lot about. Again, this is a little more updated, more than 200 and almost 200, I think 260 people now have joined the project, and more than 100 people have contributed observations. And we have some breakdowns of these analyses or like other ways to visualize this data on our website, foresthealth.org/analyses, where you can kind of break it down and see like, okay, most of the observations are healthy, but there is still a lot coming in that have dead tops or thinning canopies. So again, I just want to illustrate that we've really focused on Western red cedar, and I would love to know more about what you all are seeing. But we have started these other projects as well. And the way that these are essentially going to help is, one, it will give us a good understanding of the distribution where this is occurring. It'll help us identify conditions where trees may be vulnerable, like patterns of where we're seeing them die and be healthy. We plan to do overlay analyses where we can look at which environmental parameters are important. Is it just precipitation or temperature? And that will allow us to use tools like the seed lot selection tool more effectively, which would be another neat tech tool for sharing with this group. But ultimately, once we have more information about where trees are vulnerable and where trees, which environmental parameters are important, then we can start to screen other populations. And so in the end, with the effort of the whole community, we can develop this information quickly, and we can start to plant trees that are more tolerant and allow Western red cedar to be kept on our landscapes for future generations. So it really comes down to us all, and this iNaturalist tool is just one neat way that we can all work together to find solutions to these forest health issues. So thanks for this opportunity. So I am a little bit packed it too full, but
no, that's good. That was great. I mean, a half hour is not a lot of time, so no matter how you do it. But that was fantastic, and it looks like we had a couple questions. Okay. Kim asked, "Can you record observations without photos?"
Yes, you can. The disadvantage of that is that other people cannot confirm that you actually saw red cedar. You might be looking at a Port Orford cedar, or a yellow cedar, or an incense cedar. And so by having those pictures, it just gives us a little more confidence that you saw what you saw. But I definitely recognize that some people are experts and trustworthy. And so it's still valuable. You don't have to have a picture.
Yeah,
it's still valuable.
Similarly, someone asked if there's a downside to not providing the location of an observation.
Okay, so I forgot to mention that when you join the project, you can say, I trust this project. And then even if you've said, I want to disclose, or I want to hide the location, but then you trust the project, then the project will still have access to that location.
Mm-hmm.
So, so that's one way around it. The downs, yeah. So that gets around the downside of it, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad to hear that some of you think it's a good resource. We'd love to see more people using it, and we're here to help explain. If you have trouble, I guess every month we have an office hour, a community office hour, where to help people troubleshoot iNaturalist.
Oh,
So there's
cool.
more information about that on foresthealth.org. We also do monthly research updates to talk about what we're seeing in the data, and those are specifically designed for people that contribute and want to know, like, you know, was my stuff useful? How are you going to use this? That kind of thing.
And they can sign up for those also at the foresthealth.org, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just on the front page, if you scroll, anyway, just there's some events.
I'll just type it in the chat box just for good
Okay.
measure. Yeah, no, I think this is awesome. I love this project. There are several projects, but right, like we're us experts, extension, university, DNR, whoever, we're just like one set of eyes, and having 600 to 700 people out there looking for this stuff, tracking it, is invaluable. I mean, it's such a big deal right now. And with things as dry as they are this year so far, I suspect we'll probably be seeing some more Western red cedar dieback in the coming year. I hope not, but
I know, I'm also worried. But yeah, we're also open if there's a project you think should be on there that there isn't yet. Yesterday, someone was saying, well, there's a lot of incense cedar dying around Eugene, Oregon. Can we create a project for that? And so like, it's pretty quick and easy to just create a new project that if there's other concerns that anyone has, let us know. We're happy to partner or facilitate that. But yeah, just again, you know, us as extension folks always get inquiries about, you know, I have a big leaf maple and it looks very sick, and we've been getting those inquiries for a long time, but now because of iNaturalist, we can like have a space to tracking where that's occurring. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so we're now at this neat place where please share those observations, because then you know, a researcher will be able to look at them and be like, and start picking out patterns.
Just real quick, Jeremy made a suggestion of looking into Zooniverse. I've never heard of that as a volunteer portal, but spreading awareness for the projects. Maybe you've heard of that.
That's a really good suggestion. So a lot of that is like image analysis, where they might have pictures of stars and they're having people help identify, you know, or base the shapes of a starburst and things like that. And so maybe that would be a really neat platform if someone had a lot of aerial satellite imagery and we wanted to aerial, maybe drone imagery or like LiDAR, as you said, and we need volunteers to go through that imagery, then that's a really good platform for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a good suggestion. Thanks, Jeremy.
All right. Well, then let's call it there. Thank you, Joey. That was awesome. Really appreciate it, as usual. And thanks, everybody, for joining today and this week. As I mentioned, I will send out the links to the recordings along with contact information for Joey and all the other speakers. And I was going to include a list of some of the other tools that might be useful that we couldn't get to this week, like the seed lot selection tool that Joey mentioned. So there'll be a bunch of information in there and a survey that I would really, really, really appreciate you filling out so you get a little more feedback on the program. But other than that, thank you so much. And thanks again, Joey, and have a great weekend.